In the forests of the Appalachians in West Virginia, a couple practices climbing together. The man reaches the top, while his girlfriend struggles to climb. She loses her balance, but she is using a rope. She asks her boyfriend for help, but he doesn't respond. Suddenly, the man appears fallen, lifeless, at the edge of the cliff. The killer pushes the body and begins to pull the woman's rope. She uses a knife to cut the rope, but unfortunately ends up losing her balance and falls next to her dead boyfriend. The killer follows her, and she runs very scared to save her life. When she sees the car, she trips on a barbed wire. The killer catches up to her and kills her. The news about the couple's death spreads throughout the county, reaching the radio in Chris's car while he drives. But he doesn't care. He encounters unexpected traffic. Chris gets out of the car to ask a truck driver what's happening. The truck driver says that a truck spilled chemicals on the road, and it will take several hours to clean up. Chris starts the car and turns back. He tries to call someone to let them know he'll be late for his job interview, but has no signal. On the way, Chris sees a sign and takes a detour. He arrives at a gas station. Chris uses the public phone, but it doesn't work. He asks the very strange owner if he has another phone, but the owner refuses to lend it. Chris looks at the map and sees a marked path and asks the owner. He said it's a dirt road. Chris decides to take the shortcut, saying, "Have a good day" to the strange man. Upon leaving, the owner of the place said that he will need it, seeming to sense that something bad is coming. On the way, Chris reaches a crossroads. He sees a sign with the name Bear Mountain Road. After thinking for a bit, he decides to follow this road. Suddenly, the car's sound begins to fail. The CD is ejected, and Chris tries to grab it. He puts the CD back and regains control of the car. However, he gets distracted looking at himself in the rearview mirror and hits another vehicle. Hey, what would you do if you were trapped in a forest full of cannibals? The movie I'm going to summarize is called Wrong Turn. For many, this is the best suspense movie set in a forest. If it's the best, I don't know, but it easily enters the top 5. I've watched this movie several times, and I confess it puts current films to shame. If you want, I can bring the complete saga as a summary. That's why I invite you to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave a like to receive the best recaps. When Chris gets out of the car, Scott and Carly approach to see if he's okay. Evan begins to reprimand him for driving recklessly, and Francine asks him to pay for the damages to her mother's car. The group explained that one of the car's tires got punctured, so they were stuck in the middle of the road. Jessie told the group that she found a wire with spikes that punctured their car's tires. They decided to look for someone who could help them. Jessie spoke to Chris and asked him to carry her backpack. Scott apologized as he felt bad about how his friends were treating Chris. The four departed, while Evan and Francine stayed to keep watch. Scott started to get along with Chris, asking if everything seemed in slow motion when he collided. Chris just laughed at his silly comments. Later, the group found a dead animal. Scott thought it was a squirrel, but Chris corrected him, saying it was a mink, mentioning with humility that he attended medical school. Evan and Francine consider that they should have taken Jessie to New York instead of the forest. Francine comments that Jessie loves the forest and that, as friends, they should help her after her recent breakup. The conversation leads Francine to suggest that Evan take off his pants. She kisses him before blowing. Meanwhile, Scott and Carly imagine their future together. Scott then notices flames near a tree. Someone started a fire a short time ago, and they shout for the person responsible. However, they get no response and move on. Evan looks for something to eat in the back of the car, while Francine eats a chocolate bar in Chris's car. She observes Chris's music discs and forms an opinion about what he likes to listen to. Suddenly, a soft noise of a branch breaking catches Evan's attention, and he goes out to see what it is. Worried about not seeing her boyfriend, Francine enters the forest to look for him. On the ground, she finds his shoe. After searching more, Francine sees Evan's ear on the ground. Very frightened and without reaction, she tries to go back, but she's caught and killed. At the same time, Scott and Carly are planning their future wedding. He is more involved in the details, like choosing the singer for the ceremony. Over time, Scott gets lost in his thoughts. Finally, he realizes that Carly is no longer by his side. Scott starts to get more anxious as Carly still hasn't been found. She suddenly appears, scaring Scott. The two find Chris and Jessie, who are standing at the edge of a cliff. Scott pretends to trip, almost falling off the edge. Chris and Jesse move away while Carly starts talking about their future romantic adventures. The couples arrive at a cabin in the forest. They find it strange that various abandoned vehicles surround the house. Chris knocks on the cabin door, but no one answers. They decide to enter the cabin even though Jesse and Scott don't agree. They search everything trying to find a phone, but have no success. Scott insists on leaving the place, suspecting that the owner of the house belongs to a cult, but Carly interrupts him with screams. Scott then opens a room full of various things. Jesse also finds a strange collection of sunglasses. Meanwhile, Chris finds a container full of a boiling dark liquid. Chris enters another room that has a generator running, powering refrigerators and coolers. He opens it and finds containers full of body parts. Simultaneously, Jesse finds barbed wire covered in a corner. Chris opens a container with human flesh, and Carly sees a submerged corpse in the bathtub. They are about to leave when suddenly a pickup truck arrives with their vehicles in tow. They try to exit through the back door, but it's blocked. The mutants enter their house while Jesse and Scott hide under a bed. One of the mutants drops Francine's body, and the two see her very damaged face. Her blood drips through Chris's hand, leaving them frightened and disgusted. The mutants with deformed faces begin to cut up Francine. A bullet falls under the bed, and a mutant reaches for it, fortunately not finding the two under the bed. Through a keyhole, Carly cries as she sees them dismembering her friend. After a while, the mutants take a nap after a long day. The two couples begin to leave the cabin. Carly knocks over a jar, making noise, but the cannibals continue sleeping. She can't look at Francine's dismembered body. They approach the exit, and as Jesse opens the door, Chris holds the door spring to prevent it from making noise. His hands begin to bleed as everyone leaves slowly. Because of this, one of the mutants wakes up and sees them leaving. They begin to climb the mountain quickly, while the cannibal brothers begin another hunt after them. Carly is very nervous, making the group slow down. Scott reassures Carly, talking about what might happen in the future, and she calms down. They reach an area full of abandoned cars and signs of violence. In the distance, Chris hears the sound of a pickup truck approaching. They crouch down to avoid being seen, while the deformed brothers begin to look for. Chris plans to use the pickup truck to escape. Scott suggests that someone distract the mutants while the others get into the vehicle. Without thinking twice, Chris starts to run and shout. One of the mutants shoots Chris in the leg, leaving him incapacitated. To try to help him, Scott also runs to distract them. Jesse and Carly help Chris reach the pickup truck. Upon opening the door, Evan falls out and Carly becomes emotional again. They leave, but one of the brothers is right behind. Further in the forest, they see Scott. He runs toward them, but suddenly stops moving. An arrow pierces his chest, causing his death. Another arrow breaks the glass, making Jesse drive while they leave Scott behind. In the truck, Carly cannot accept the death of her fiancé and asks Jesse to go back. After a few hours of driving, they return to the path. Without the love of her life, Carly's eyes are empty. Unfortunately, they have to stop due to a tree in the middle of the road. And to make matters worse, the truck gets stuck in the mud, so they decide to leave it behind. Carly refuses to believe they can continue and loses all hope. Jesse tries to explain that Scott sacrificed himself so they could move forward. Finally, she listens and they continue their journey. Chris almost falls into a bear trap. Carly then laughs uncontrollably at what happened. The group finds an observation tower. Carly starts screaming to see if anyone is up there, and Jesse asks her to be quiet. They climb up an unsafe ladder and reach the top in time for sunset. Chris and Jesse begin to look for roads or nearby towns while Carly remains pessimistic. They find a first aid kit, and Jesse helps care for Chris's leg. Carly finds a radio, but no one responds when she asks for help. Outside, a dim flashlight light indicates to Chris that the mutants are nearby. The mutants pass by them, but a loud alarm from the radio attracts their attention. A forest ranger receives the distress call and asks where they are. Carly screams that she doesn't know where they are. The mutants begin to climb the ladder, and Chris begins to block the entrance. Jesse gives a general idea of where they are. The person on the radio advises them to stay where they are, as he will come to rescue them. A mutant begins to open the hatch, and Chris crushes his hand. Suddenly, they stop trying to enter, and it becomes completely silent. When smoke rises from outside, they see that the watchtower is on fire. Carly throws a box out the window and plans to jump, saying she'd rather die from the fall than burn to death. Chris agrees with Carly, saying there's a chance of surviving the fall. He jumps and the branches hold him. Carly and Jesse manage to jump successfully, but the mutants hear their screams. They begin to move through the trees, hiding in the shadows. Arrows are fired randomly from below, making them cautious with every step. One of the mutants comes face to face with Carly and hits her with an axe. Chris and Jesse see the scene and are very shocked. They continue running, and the laughter and cries of the mutants echo through the forest. Chris stops to pick up a branch that he plans to use to push the mutant between the trees. Jesse goes out to attract the mutant. The mutant appears behind her with a knife in hand. Chris drops the branch and the mutant is thrown far away. After that, Chris and Jesse hide behind a waterfall. Jesse talks about the end of her relationship. Because of this, her friends decided to take a day off on the same day to help her overcome the situation. Jesse feels guilty about the death of her friends. Chris comforts her as they spend the night together. Jesse dreams that the mutants are attacking her. She wakes up frightened, scaring Chris. They leave the waterfall to continue fleeing. The first hope emerges when they spot a road. But then, an axe is thrown towards Chris, and the cannibals surround them. They push Chris and kidnap Jesse. A park ranger comes down the road, and Chris approaches him. He tells about the cannibals that are chasing them. However, an arrow hits the guard's eye during the conversation. The cannibal almost hits the next arrow, which leads Chris to hide under the car. The mutant takes the keys and looks under the car. Not finding anyone, Chris hides in the bushes, waiting for the cannibal to enter the car. He slides and clings to the chassis of the vehicle. In the cabin, Jesse asks the mutant to let her go. Chris and the cannibal arrive and see the mutant dragging the forest ranger to the cabin. Jesse screams as she sees them tearing apart the forest ranger. Suddenly, a fire starts and one of the cannibals approaches to see what's happening. Chris enters with the car into the house, running over a cannibal and fights with them. He throws a Molotov cocktail at the last cannibal, setting him on fire. Chris stabs him and the burning mutant falls to the ground. After Chris frees Jesse, another mutant throws him against the wall, grabs an axe and begins to attack him. The cannibal grabs Chris by the neck, allowing Jesse to shoot an arrow into the back of his head. It seems that the terror is over, but the last mutant runs towards Chris. Jesse hits him from behind with a flaming piece of wood. The strange being aims at her with 2 knives in his hands, kicking her through the window. Chris then suffocates him with a chain, and Jesse delivers the final blow with an axe. The 3 are still alive, and with just 1 shot, Chris shoots a fuel tank, and the cabin explodes. Later, the cannibal's truck approaches the gas station, and the strange owner closes in fear. To his surprise, an injured Chris gets out of the vehicle to get a map. Chris and Jesse survive, and they leave God only knows where. After this scene, a police officer goes to check the burning cabin. Inside it appears one of the cannibals, 3 fingers. And so the movie ends. Hey, what score would you give this movie? If you want, I'll bring the sequel, which is just as good as the first. So that's it. Don't forget to activate the bell until the next recap.